name is Chris Crawford. Thanks for being here. I'm a patrol officer. I work in the southernmost part of the city by the mall. When this was dispatched over our radio, I drove northbound up Riverside Drive with my lights and sirens on, heading north towards the school. When I arrived at the school, I parked my car in the northeast corner of Holmberg and Pine Island. And I grabbed my rifle and started running towards the 1200 building. I think I was probably 11th or 12th, 13th to arrive. By that time, Coral Springs officers were already at the building, and I was directed by my captain to clear the parking lot, looking for any injured students or faculty, and look for the bad guy, because most of our officers were at the building. We didn't want to get ambushed. So I quickly ran up and down the lanes of parking, making sure there was nobody hurt there, make sure the shooter was not there, going to sneak up on us. I ran back to the 1200 building, and I was immediately met at the door by Sergeant Vulo, who was one of our patrol sergeants. He had an injured boy he was helping carry out. It's a 14-year-old student. He just told me he's been shot a bunch of times to take care of him. I took him off his hands, and he went back into the building. I walked the boy out as far as I could to the street. There was a girl that came walking up and said she was shot as well. So I said, come with me. We got out to the street, and I was trying to get him where the fire department was working, but he said he couldn't breathe. He couldn't walk any farther, so I laid him down in the grass, and that's when I started doing what we're taught to do here as far as training, dealing with gunshot wounds and injured people. We're all issued tactical or combat gauze, which is basically a piece of gauze with a clotting agent inside of it that you would stuff inside of a wound. I searched the boy. I found an injury to his lower back, his upper shoulder, I think a shrapnel wound to his arm, and a gunshot to his thigh. I stuffed the one in his back was the worst. I stuffed the combat gauze inside that and put another piece of gauze on top of it and put pressure on it. I quickly looked at the girl. Her injuries seemed minimal. She had some type of injury to her wrist. I don't know if it was a gunshot or shrapnel. She had an injury to her toe. I put gauze on that. At that point, Officer Liss, another Coral Springs officer, arrived, asked me what he wanted me to do, or what I wanted him to do. I told him put pressure on this kid's back. So he put his knee into the kid's back, and I put another combat gauze on a gunshot wound that he had to his thigh. Pardon? I'm sorry. I put another combat gauze on his thigh, where I found another gunshot wound that started to bleed. One of our detectives, Detective Lauren Lopez, arrived and asked me what I needed. I told her run down to the firemen and get them to come down here to help us, which she did, and they immediately came running down to help us. At that point, I let the fire department, there's 7 or 8 firemen, paramedics there. I let them know what I had done, and they immediately took over and started taking care of these kids. At that point, Officer Liss and I got up. We ran back to the 1200 building. By the time we got there, we were told to get together with a group of guys, officers that were already getting ready to leave and start looking for the shooter. It was a myriad of Coral Springs officers, Captain McKeon, Sergeant DeRosa, BSO Lieutenant Mike DeVita, Detective Shroy. It was just different people from all over the agency at that point. And we went looking for the shooter. We went all the way down to the fields that separate the middle school and the high school. We didn't find anything. At that point, we broke up, and myself, Detective Shroy, and Sergeant DeRosa went into the 500 building. We located a classroom of kids. I believe the teacher's name is Mrs. Boyd. They let us in. They were hiding in a storage room in the back of the classroom. I got them all into the classroom. There was 2 more classrooms that you could reach from that storage area. I got those kids all together, and I married all the classes up together with the 3 teachers. My first thing to all of them was anybody shot? Was anybody hurt? Did anybody join the classroom, come running into the classroom after the fire alarm and the shots were fired to make sure he wasn't mixed in with these kids and the teachers? Then my next thing was every single one of you call your mother and father and let them know that you're okay. And if anybody can't get a hold of their mom, call somebody else, let them know that you are all right. And then I told them just to be patient, and I was going to stand guard at the door until SWAT came and got them. And that's what I did. That was my involvement.
Do you know if those kids all survived, especially the boy? Do you know if they survived?
To my understanding, yes, they did.
And officer, doctors credit you all, especially the first responders, packing the wounds, stopping the bleeding, with saving the lives, more so than even perhaps they could have done. The satisfaction, what does that bring to you?
For me, what bothers me is I wish I had gotten there sooner and to stop this. So for me, I'm glad that I could help just one kid. And I think that's for everybody here, the SWAT medics that were there, the regular medics, I helped one kid or 2 kids, and that was, I wish I could have helped them all.
Officer Crawford, do you have military training?
Yes, I'm a veteran. I'm a former Marine.
How many years have you been with the department, sir?
I've been here 15 years.
How are you coping with this now, more than a week after?
It's awful. It's as bad as you can imagine, times 10. My wife's a detective here. She was on scene as well. I left my phone in the car. I didn't know what she was doing, and she didn't know where I was. I had to pass off my rifle because, I was busy with the children. And, someone told her that they had a rifle, and she was worried for a couple of seconds until that person told me, hey, listen, he's fine, but she didn't know why my equipment wasn't with me. She knows I'd go in with my rifle, I'd come out with it. So it's hard. It's awful. I have a 2-year-old. I don't want to send him to school.
One of the street corners outside of school, I think it was University of Holmberg, is where we saw so many ambulances pull up and so many kids coming running out, and it was just child after child after child. At any point did you think to yourself, my God, when does this stop in terms of how many kids are coming out of here wounded and injured and needing assistance?
Yeah, exactly. I was. It was like just a flow of kids coming out. Every time I turned around, there was another officer with blood all over him. So it was horrendous.
You carry your rifle, you carry your equipment. How did you happen to have the equipment on hand to help these students out?
Our police department has been issuing these types of equipment since 2008. I carry a tourniquet, a combat gauze, a regular gauze on my person. That's what I used on him. It's supposed to be for us. Obviously, I'm going to use it on them. So I had it with me. We also are issued these packs for us. And basically inside this, and I can show you all whenever you like, is just, everything that I just described to you. It's got combat gauze, it's got a tourniquet, it's got everything, certainly.
Can you describe what it is?
It's got a chest seal, so if you have a sucking chest wound, the way we've been trained, if the person can't breathe and they've been shot in the chest, a lot of times it's just a matter of plugging up the hole and their lung will inflate. I'm a cop, I'm not a fireman or a doctor, but I just do what I'm told and to look for those things, and that's what I would have done. It's got a chest seal, it's got a tourniquet, it's got scissors, it's got a myriad of things that you could use on a trauma. It's just something to hold them up, hold off, the best you can until the better trained people arrive, the fire department, paramedics, doctors.
How has the mood been here? Ever since the shooting, I'm sure it's been somber, but how has been the atmosphere here at the police department among you and your fellow officers?
It's somber. It's awful. we all, a lot of the kids that go to Douglas and Parkland are Coral Springs kids. A lot of kids, like I said, my wife's an alumni. She's a detective there. She saw her volleyball coach. She went to high school there. Her sister went to high school. We all know these kids. We know these teachers. It's somber, but you know, we did everything we were trained to do. You know, our agency gets a lot of training. We're lucky. Our admin trains us, you know, kind of tip of the spear kind of thing. So I think, you know, we did exactly what every single officer from this agency did exactly what they were supposed to do, and I'm proud of that.
Officer, you mentioned the children in the classroom that you were standing guard over until SWAT came. About how many kids do you estimate were in that room?
Maybe 70 with three teachers.
70 kids.
Yeah, I got them all into the one classroom and told them I know they didn't want to be there, but I just wanted to keep them as close as I could so I
So
could
they
keep them.
weren't all 70 in that one room?
They're all in the one room, and then there's like a little storage room in the back, so I think some of them kind of went that way. But it was myself and Sergeant DeRosa that were there.
So it was a storage room that they were in?
There's a classroom and then a storage room, so they were all kind of standing there in those two little rooms.
Okay, and also the student, the child that you helped save, he had been shot, you said lower back, shoulder, thigh.
And I think he had some sort of shrapnel injury or maybe even a gunshot wound to his arm. You have to understand, like, I've seen in the past what a larger caliber, like an AK-47 round, doing what it does to a body. The hole's larger. What I was seeing this day on some of the wounds that I had for just this boy, I guess the best way to describe it is if I took a number 2 pencil and poked you in the arm as hard as I could, it was very, very small, and it kind of took me aback, wondering, you know, is this what I'm looking at? And then you find exit wounds and stuff, and those are much more horrendous. But
Were you overseas as a Marine?
yes,
How would this compare? Is this worse than?
I didn't do any combat tours when I was in the Marine Corps. I was in a long time ago.
Okay.
So I don't have anything to reference it.
Officer Crawford,
Yes, sir.
you and the other first responders are dealing with a lot of armchair quarterbacking by the media and the internet. How much harder does that make for you guys to process all of this and move forward?
It can be said, I know what our guys did, I know what I did. I scared myself driving 100 miles up an hour up a road, up Riverside Drive, which is a small road. You know, I don't know what anyone else's philosophy is as far as, you know, they want to quarterback all they want. All I know is I ran as hard as I could to that scene, and my philosophy is if I got there while he's still shooting, one of 3 things is going to happen. He's either going to be killed by me, I'm going to get killed by him, or I'm going to be helping a wounded child. That's my philosophy. So I don't care what anyone says. I know how hard I worked and how hard all my fellow brothers and sisters worked.
When you were in the storage room with these classes and you're bringing them all together, was that the first time those kids and those teachers are seeing help has arrived? And can you describe what their reaction was to you? Were they relieved to see you?
The first 2 classes were. The 3rd class, Mrs. Boyd was the first teacher that I met with. The 3rd class, I knocked on the door and I told them I'm, you know, Coral Springs Police, and they said they weren't going to open the door. I had to negotiate with them. They made me slide my ID underneath the door. I could hear more and more desks getting pushed up against the door.
They thought you were the bad guy.
Yeah, they didn't believe me. I forgot my phone. I was going to have them FaceTime me. I slid my ID under the door, and they started asking me questions, what my ID number is, the stuff that's on our IDs. And then Mrs. Boyd gave them, I guess they have a code word that all the teachers know to release the kids, and then that's when they opened up the door, and then they were relieved.
That's
You know,
for the room of the 70 kids.
that was the 3rd and final classroom that I dealt with. They were average size classes, 20, 30 kids per thing, and there was 3 of them, so I wanted to get them all as close as I could to me, and then I just stood guard outside the door.
And they had a desk pushed against it?
The 3rd class had every desk pushed against it. It took 45 seconds, a minute for them to move all the desks around like I said, I had to negotiate with them to come out because they were not coming out. And I don't blame them.